All right, so this is a recording of just me making the legs of this particular robot, um, just to give some tips on my workflow and things like that. But let me exit out of this. All right, so jumping in here, grab brush. Grab brush is non-tessellating, as me and Craig were discussing earlier. However, that is what makes it the king of brushes. The grab brush is my absolute workhorse. I come through, grab, pull, push, and just move things into place until the silhouette, just begins to feel more um, like what I want. I had some little things protruding on the side, kind of creature-esque, but that look wasn't exactly working. So, here I'm making some adjustments. So you'll see me go through the full process of modeling, sculpting, retopology of these particular legs. So even though I know it's sped up, for the most part, just know that in sculpt mode, I'm pretty much using only the dam brush, which is a modified crease brush with the curve made all the way down, and polish and grab. That's it. So, all right, a lot of messages all of a sudden. All right, but I didn't want to, finish this model. So I can say it's the last model of the new year. And in addition to that, I also wanted to put up just something since y'all haven't seen anything in a while. So my last computer really started going out, so I just could not keep up with. Um, well, I mean, it was working, but it just wasn't working good enough. And not to mention, the Blender builds of the BuildBot haven't been coming up, and I'm yet to begin building from SVN. So, all right, all right. Sorry, I'm getting a ton of messages all of a sudden about New Year's, F New Year's, onto this model. So as you see, build it up with the clay, polish it. I'm seeing shapes in here, just materials and things like that I'm going to go for, and just polishing it up. So, I'm going to go with the easiest design lines that just kind of lead inward and just kind of have a real simple shape. I mean, if you want to understand hard surface, then just get a picture of Iron Man and take a really, really, really close look at him. He's a hard surface masterpiece of how to psychologically and anesthetically build a hard surface model in a heroic manner. I mean, every shape is perfect. So that's something that I usually look at quite a bit, just to understand the kind of thinking that went behind his design. And so now I'm just going to build this up and cut shapes and polish it off. I mean, if I wanted, I could also have poly modeled the hell out of this and just went through it that way. But dynamic topology just allows me to pick up my tablet and quit pressing buttons on the keyboard, and I'll save that for whenever it's done. So coming in, sculpting, got the pinch brush on high, and I'm just jumping in, damming it, which you can look at it like a really thin standard that just has a high curve, and just polishing each piece, making sure that there's height difference between each segment to further add to the silhouette. And once again, curving. So keep in mind that there's a stroke where you just draw with your brush regularly, and then you can press Shift S and that'll turn on your lazy selection, which will be a red line that can actually help you more accurately make your stroke without inaccuracies. So these are things you want to keep in mind. This video is also sped up hard, and that's because this is intended mainly to be just a explanation for a couple of people I've been talking with lately about hard surface modeling and how they should, just approach the shapes and the workflow. Because you'll see once I do the retopology that it's the the shapes aren't exactly touching and are not connected, and that's where sculpting mode comes in again. And so, I was actually discussing with a different artist yesterday about the importance of using reference images. When I first started Blender, I tried to keep my works as original as possible by not looking at other people's images or admiring works, and this in the end hurt me in my growth as an artist. And um, admiring other people's work, I neglected to build up a shape library in my head. So even now, I still build up shapes. And so you'll often see this segmented hole kind of look of like in the knee. That's part of my shape library in my head that I just refer to just by default without even thinking whenever I'm sculpting up these sort of things. And the more you expand on it, the more variety you can have and more interesting your designs are. And of course, the better they'll come out in the end. So not to say it as if, I'm the know-all authority, but just for me, this is pretty much how I approach it. So I was actually going to just do just the legs and skip out the feet, but the feet isn't that much farther from the leg and as far as labor, so you'll see me go in and do that as well, and even go in and do like the polishing and the finishing up of this. But I do plan on coming back and making some more YouTube videos, especially about some of the new things I've been learning. I've been using Marmoset and Substance and all these other programs. In fact, maybe at the end of this, might do a demonstration. But I mean, if you look at my YouTube video, the Marmoset Substance Blender collab, I've been quite busy. And the only problem is, of course, these programs aren't free. I mean, you have to go get them. However, you get software. You know what I'm saying? But it's definitely something worth checking into. I mean, Blender will give you so much knowledge just learning it alone, but there's a large amount of knowledge that you can only learn just through other software of workflows and techniques and workarounds and the way that artists work that will also translate over to your Blender workflow. So a lot of people ask me, do I still use ZBrush or do I use ZBrush? And the answer, of course, is yes. I use ZBrush quite a bit. However, it's not even a choice of whether or not I want to use ZBrush for this or use ZBrush for that. It's that, which program's open. Sometimes Blender's open. I'm using Blender. And if ZBrush is open, I'll jump right over into there. But you want to, dedicate yourself to mastering what you're trying to do, because every defeat will make you not want to do it. And, you should take that as a way of just going at it again or reapproaching it, just take a break, look at some references, get inspired, get back on it, and just do shape studies on things other people make. Another thing I was mentioning that I've used to get much better at Blender is studying files from BlendSwap. BlendSwap is a wealth of information. People go on there, share their files. You can download up to 150 megs a week. I mean, that's a lot of blend files. So, I mean, there's some impressive files that are worth disassembling, looking at. I even have a lot of these robots on here. So, I mean, if you really are wanting to buckle down and understand even my technique, just look up my name, Master Xeon, of course, on BlendSwap. You can even look me up on Sketchfab. Sketchfab's another site that I just love looking at. In fact, I want to come back and do a tutorial about it later. But on Sketchfab, you can literally look at their models from all angles. So you can look at their faces and study their line work and just kind of see how their surface contours are set up and just work on that understanding. And you might notice that I'm not using collapse short edges or any of the other sculpting modes. I mean, sculpting parts, and that's because they suck. For this, if you're using those and you're probably going about it all wrong. With this dynamic topology, you should let the freedom guide you, and I want to subdivide with every stroke. And then if it gets too dense, I'll put a decimate on it and then come back in and do it again. The short edges has worked, but I've seen it also disintegrate detail like what you're seeing me scratching right now. So I mean, if you're able to get it to work for you, more power to you, but just so you know, I've tried using it, hate it. This is where it's at. Just polishing, damming it up, just looking at those shapes. And of course, with my red matte cap by my side, can't go wrong. This matte cap is full of character, it's vibrant, shows beautiful transitions. It's much better than ZBrush's own default red matte cap. It's Definitely one of my favorite mat caps I've ever used. However, come on time, it's time to give us the ability to put in our own mat caps, or else I will have to use the viewport lighting add-on. But I know it's coming. I might as well just wait for it. So continuing on, just working on the feet. No idea on how to go about this here, so just scratching in shapes, polishing shapes, edging it up, and just trying to see where it takes me. And so now scratching in the feet, putting in an area for the toes. You know, any parts I don't like, I can always just come through, remodel it if I want, block it in, just resculpt it. You know, take it through the same workflow, just on individual pieces I don't like. But I tend to try to get it right the first time. And out of all the things on models, the feet probably matter the least. But this has definitely been a fun project. Fully inspired by Craig. I think Monday morning or something, or one morning I was working and I saw he had made a thread saying he was working on Robot Follow My Video, and I was like, I think I'll jump in and take up on some of the action too. And as a result, it's been just great. So, and of course, my favorite trick, uh, rubbing it in with the circle, with the clay, and then bringing it back out with the clay to just give a little rivet or button look, just in the hinge areas. But now, retopology. So you saw me drop in a plane on the exact same area these legs are, delete all the verts of the plane, and just begin drawing it. So automatically off the bat, I have the origin point of the legs, so I can use the mirror mod, and I also have everything all set up. So basically, it's just me duplicating verts, extruding verts, taking advantage of the fact that I am sitting on top of the mesh to just put these pieces in there. And that is also very important. I've tried retopology in several other applications, and I must say there's no better place to do it than Blender, if you have the tools down. A lot of people, I point out the tools and they act like they still don't know what I'm talking about. You should know what all those icons down there mean. They've been there forever. So just drawing in, adding verts, making sure they flow. Boring, boring, boring. More retopo. So got to make sure I have enough spans to be able to get these shapes in. But it's not very hard. And this is usually the funnest stage of it. In fact, this whole process, beginning to end, took about 3 hours. The retopology could have been done much quicker, but I was also on Google Hangouts and talking to other people about random things and goofing off. And if I was focused, I probably could have been done a little quicker. But it's also good to take a casual approach and be done. Take a casual approach, and you'll be done eventually. And so the goal is to just get all the pieces to be right there at each other, so I can solidify, delete internal faces. Just duplicating and pulling, just knowing that it is already connected. And so here in local mode, you can see my legs are coming together. And just trying to follow the surface contours. Right here, you see, here's pretty much one of those modeling choices that I see some people maybe not make that same choice. Right here in this transition. It allows you to have a much nicer flow than if you were to pull it up and try to pull to the right. Um, Hopefully I'm explaining that right. And this one got caught in the middle. Just turn off clipping and connect them up properly. And more connections and bring it into pieces. So whenever it comes to adding in details like bolts and wires, that's just easier to be done via separate meshes or through your mapping. But I mean, in Blender, come on, we have the curves, the Bezier curve that we can add a circle object to and even decimate it to control the density of the wire. So with that level of tool control, you can definitely get a much better result than you would normally. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought. Keep getting messages. Um, so now for the butt, another choice here. So here I am scaling it from the section that connects to the lag. However, in a moment you'll see me break it off and bring it back in. But as far as edge work goes, it's for the most part it's kind of difficult to control. But you can separate meshes with Y, and like I did there, I just pressed Y, separate it, scaled it in, and now I'm just gonna fill in all the cracks using F2. Probably one of the best add-ons ever made for Blender. Next to cycles, matte caps, retopology, grid fill, and all the other cool things that I just absolutely adore about the program. And so now controlling my edges, so everything's smooth. I mean, everything's the same amount on both sides. And then just sliding things to fit. You have your GG edge slide, and then in projection mode, you can just G grab and move things around too. But, moving along, covering it all up, and just watching the form come together on the other screen. So this process isn't one that takes very long. Almost about as long as the initial sculpting does, depending on how fast you jink on the fly and how your concepting is going. If you're slow with your concepts, then this process could possibly take a little bit longer. But this is why it's also important to just have reference images all over the place. In fact, I think on my YouTube I linked to my Pinterest where I'm always looking up different things, mainly things dealing with hard surface and robots and sci-fi stuff, since that's what I'm into. But you'll also see a lot of stuff on anatomy studies and just other things I find of interest. Mhm. And just more extruding and more filling in the blanks. So I mean, there's not even a lot to explain here. I mean, the flow that your geometry should go is obvious. You flow according to your surface contours so that you can take these shapes and accentuate them with additional loops and sharpening of edges, whenever you go into sub D mode. And then you can add that visual interest to it. But as you can see on the screen, all I'm doing is pressing GSLZ. I mean, these are things that, with practice, you can become very good at, very efficient at. But without practice, you're never going to find that magical video that'll make a guru of you, because even the techniques that you see are things that you'll have to practice until you can actually do them. I mean, that's something that took me a long time to learn with tutorials was, no tutorial will teach you how to do anything. They can only just show you their approach that you can then either try and imitate, or you can mutate into your own style. But, a lot of these techniques are very popular in the robot building sections of the internet. It's like I do spend quite a bit of time researching how other people do things, so that way I can have a style that's actually appealing and, you know, garners interest. And just more pulling of verts. Now down to the bottom leg area. Gotta have an even nice flow. Connect up all the pieces. Just thinking about not only, am I getting it covered now, but also thinking about the sub D, thinking about the future and its children and how, you know, things are going to be handled there. And right there, you also saw me make a choice. I had the choice of either half-assing it and letting me have a span, interspan some other spans that did not have to be done, or ripping it with V, and then actually making sure the connection was correct. And as you can see, I actually opted for the second one because, especially for the knee and leg transitions, these parts are going to be bending and moving, so there definitely has to be some sort of transition. And there also has to be perfect verts, because people are immediately going to look at the joints on this thing and be like, how's this thing working? But as I say in all my videos, I'm no mechanical engineer. I only just, go with what I think looks cool, what looks feasible or passable for working machinery. And these little paddings, this is something new that I think I've added to my visual library of parts that I build, but um, it definitely makes it a lot easier to cover some of these areas up. Just thinking of ninjas, how to wear like shin and leg pads, just things like that is pretty much my thought process when I was making it. And also, of course, Iron Man. Not so much him specifically, but just mixed with that sort of design philosophy in general. But I've been planning on coming back and making like a super video, or one of my long tuts where I'm just ranting about all these different things, talk about texturing hair and lattices and just random stuff. So be expecting that soon. Alright, done answering Mel. Let me calm down the masses for a moment. And now we're working on getting this all covered up. And working my way around to the back of the leg. So the retopology stage is almost over. So as you can imagine, next would be solidify, and then from there fine-tuning each of the pieces geometrically. So a couple of notes that you'll see, just in case you don't see it in the video, is whenever I did the solidify, I tried a little experiment where this time, instead of just applying solidify and worrying about it later, this time I actually used variable weights. So I assigned some pieces with the weight amount of 0.4, some with 0.9, some with 0.7, just to see if I could get some different variations in the thickness. And I think it worked out pretty alright. I mean, there's some parts I had to fine tune. In fact, at the end of this video, I lost my progress after a certain point that I even got to in the video, and ended up having to redo it, which was slightly frustrating. In fact, I opened the file again and it crashed again. So that's pretty disheartening, but good news is that for the most part, this thing is UV unwrapped all the way through. So whenever it comes time for me to go into Substance or Marmoset, it's all ready. Just make a couple of maps, run it through Dedo, Endo, Knald. Really just get to work on it. So now for the legs. So the feet are going to be a pain. I mean, I have to think about articulation. Also have to think about, looking cool. So, if you go on Google and look up robot feet, most of your results will be realistic robot feet, like made by Honda or something. So those results were for the most part useless. So in the end, I just, back to the old knocking. Thinking of shapes, building it up, retopologizing it, and perfecting. So as soon as this video is over, I'll be jumping over to Rigit, be converting this video. There's more extruding. So yeah, sorry about being so quiet in this segment. There really just isn't a lot to say about it, especially because it's exactly the same as in my other video. I mean, some of the techniques may have changed a little bit, but for the most part, it's still the same. And sorry about the amount of time this is taking. I know this is a long video, but it was originally like 3 hours, so this is the best I could do on time while still giving a idea about what the heck I'm doing. This part, I made a mistake in the retopology. You may not see it immediately, but my choice in edge flow comes back to haunt me just slightly, or at least to me I thought it did. And now just fill it in the feet. So this part is something that sometimes I neglect to do on my robots, and it makes no sense because put a soul on them. I mean, they may be machines, but they need souls. And now another thing that comes back to haunt me. This particular edge flow is not one that I personally agree with. However, it is the bottom of the foot, so I will let it go. And now solidify. Some pieces are flipped. I'll just flip them using W. As you know, L selects an entire manifold piece of geometry. So now I'm just playing with solidify. And like I was saying, I came through and made some groups. Had to go and respond to some stuff on Facebook. Um, I'm out. The weight painting almost makes a cool looking color scheme, but that's beyond the point. So apply to mirror, apply to solidify, delete half, reapply to mirror. You could apply to solidify and then not apply to mirror, but then you end up with faces on the middle. It's kind of annoying. I mean, it's not that hard to deal with, but here comes the fun part. So I break each piece off, and I just add loops, right? Loops only in certain areas, loops where loops are needed. And then I sculpt it up. Just use the grab brush and grab pieces that and make them fit. So the cool thing about this is if you have only part of it revealed in edit mode, then that's only the part you can move in sculpt mode. So this allows me to more precisely move these pieces in case you're wondering about how I don't grab the opposite sides by mistake. But here you'll see the final part of this video. This is my favorite part. The polishing, the winning. It's the feeling of watching these edges just look so smooth together. Just brings in just new life to it, you know. Because I mean, dynamic topology also looked all right, but I mean, it is also a decimated, hideousified mesh of geometric nastiness, and we don't want to mess with that. So you'll see me build every piece, and then come in, harden it, and stretch it into place, just with the grab brush. So, anybody that knows me personally, grab brush is the king of brushes. I mean, next up would probably be the polish, and then the pinch, and then the dam. But that grab, though, is almost as good as ZBrush's move topological, and that is saying something. So, of course, I always hide the loops that connect it, scale it in, and then delete it. By scaling it in, I can, also extend those loops that are left. And then I just come through, bevel the edges, and just begin sculpting it into place. So the leg's obviously going to be rubber, how's that going to bend? And all the pieces just get moved. Just real nice, real gentle. No topology harmed in the making of this video. Except for right there, that part is going to need to be touched, but easier solution is to move the piece that's actually working. So 3 down, 20 to go. So for the kneecap, delete the anterior face, bevel, bevel, and now for this last part, so I smoothed it to make the loops not lay over each other, and then from there, it's all smooth sailing. Delete the interior face, for it will ruin the UV. I mean, when it comes to UVing this thing, it is literally me selecting all the pieces and pressing U unwrap. There's not even really any cleanup involved because these pieces are so flat and simple in their geometry that the unwrapping process is a dream. So I mean, if y'all haven't seen my UVing with Master Xeon, then maybe you should check it out because I go over unwrapping multiple robots, humans, chairs, cubes, every primitive. Maybe except the icosphere. Maybe I did go over to. I don't think I did. Icosphere seems like it would be a bit of a pain to unwrap. So more polishing, more deleting interior faces, and just getting each of these pieces ready. And as you can see, this process doesn't take any more than just a moment. And bevel, bevel, bevel. And where does bevel come through at? Bevel comes through in your AO. Bevel comes through in your um, it comes through in your AO. It comes through in your shadows. It comes through in your specularity. But you want edges to catch that, to just be a sudden plane change so you can catch that light and that shadow to add more depth to it. And these are things that, without it will make your model seem more simple. And, this piece, tragedy. FFF. Thanks again to Barton Campbell for that. And we'll just bring that out, delete, harden, and bevel. So I don't know what I was doing before the bevel, but I don't think it was making proper models. But with it, you'll see me use it all the time. It's a polishing phase though, because when you bevel, you're adding artificial hardness to um, dense up the geometry, and sometimes that's a bad shot. But for the most part, if you do it at the right time, it's not so bad. So now I'm bringing in the legs, sculpting it up. Bringing in the shin, sculpting it up, isolating it, keeping it simple. And I mean, this video we probably have about actually 7 more minutes together. So this has been a fun journey with you guys. I hope that everybody who watches this gets something out of the video. I wish I had more tips to share, but I wasn't even really planning on recording this today. But since I'm making some legs and some people were asking about time lapses, might as well give them one. So for this part, it did not work out. So I had to manually re-solidify. To solidify, you can also press Control F, and there's a solidify option where you can adjust the thickness in the end panel. So that's something that you will want to keep in mind. And sometimes I use that, sometimes I use the modifier. It just depends on my workflow. I mean, the equivalent of doing this, I also could have just used solidify in combination with bevel and then tried sculpting those pieces into place, but it would have been a lot messier than if I would have come through and just physically touched all of these pieces personally. Tender loving care. Tender loving care is also key to getting these things onto completion and looking good. Too often you see, one day projects, why does this not look good? Well, because you only spent an hour on it, you didn't care about it, you're not physically, mentally compelled by it, emotionally, you have no attachment to this render. So this one here is also going to be this robot was built to be part of hopefully my new intro sequence that I've been working on for quite a while. I've been wanting to make something really spectacular, especially since I make tutorials. I have to put out works that show that I'm a person worthy of making videos. So, stay tuned for that. Sometimes, like I've actually been waiting to make a video until I finish this intro, but it's been taking so long. Might as well just go back to making tuts until I get it completed. But a lot has been going on. Like I said, I got a brand new computer. I'll be i7, 16 gigs. Rocking it large after a while. But right now I'm only at 8, but just a little bit longer and I'll be all set. But my previous computer was an i5, 6 gigs of RAM. Thing was taking a brutal beating at the hands of all my 3D endeavors. In fact, I couldn't even run Substance Designer um, 4 until I got this one, which is kind of sad because I was really psyched about it when it first came out, only to find that I could not even run it properly. But more polish, and just getting these shapes in here and interconnecting everything and filling in gaps. Most of your work with the grab brush is going to be you filling in gaps, hide a couple, and now I can just pull things freely without any affecting at the top. So this is pretty much my equivalent of masking. You could use the mask lasso, but the mask doesn't show up on your matcap view, so I don't use that. And since I found out this trick, jumping in edit mode is nothing to me. And so this piece, like I said, the topology kind of came back to haunt me. But here's how I solve it. Just come in, put a bevel, and just try to, slide all that to fit. And because of the shape, it just did not want to go. So this one probably gave me the most fight out of this whole thing. And I knew it from the moment I modeled it that it was going to be a bit of a nuisance. This part also was a failure. I don't know what the heck was happening with this thing, but in the end, made sense of it. And that's it. So now you see it. I polished it up, added a couple of pistons in the front and in the back of the legs. And here you can see everything just looking smooth. I went through, played with the butt. Just worked a little bit on those hard surface shapes. And now he's on the layer with Veldox. Rendered out with that horrible diffuse gray. So I will take this and show you how I make a quick turntable. So basically I parent it to a Bezier circle, put in a frame for rotation, put in another keyframe, set it to be 360 exactly, and set the end frame to be there. Press V and turn the curves to vectors, and now the models will rotate on their own circles that I parent them to. So this is just added presentation, just because I've been making some presentations of the whips of this entire project. So this one was a presentation whip of the dynamic topology plus the retopoed, more finalized, refined version. But that's pretty much the end of it. So right there you saw me ending the render and setting it up again. So my idea was to have these pistons like coming up into the side, but I may remove them. However, right now I'm wondering how they'll affect its movement. I'm imagining quite a bit so if you had pistons right there. But next part is just slapping materials on it. So because I haven't done any vertex level painting on it to just get base colors for me to take out and perfect somewhere else, I'm just going to go ahead and just slap my metal material in here with my Kevlar, and that should give me a pretty decent starting color scheme to work with before I begin, refining it. So this is a common way of just doing really quick texture painting that I always do in Blender. I mean, it just gets me started. So finishing up with the foot. And voila, those are some good looking legs that are ready to kick some ass on a Tuesday night. A little more metal couldn't hurt. And voila. So that ends this video. So happy blendering.
This world means nothing without you. This world means nothing.